I know you said at the beginning of the conversation you think AI is kind of like the biggest equity creator. I think you said something like that. How do you think we can continue to make sure that it's equitable?
Oh, what a wonderful
Especially
question. Yeah. So, I'm paraphrasing here, but there was this Brookings report that basically said the following: genius is evenly distributed, but privilege is not.
Mm,
And, having worked, in a number of neighborhoods and run a community center and seen the raw IQ horsepower of some of the most underestimated people and underutilized communities inspired me to ask, like, well, why? Why aren't they starting a business and doing these things and figuring out their taxes and, explaining, and signing bad loans? And the answer is because you just don't have necessarily access to everyone and anyone that's had that lived experience. And
mm,
so, at the most fundamental level, I think one of the ways we create and continue to create equity is teaching AI as an augmentation to things like life skills. Right?
mm,
Making a budget is hard. Getting an example of a budget by talking to your AI and explaining that you want to start a business to bake cake for your uncle, right? Or whatever it might be is a lot
mm,
easier than looking up a book and defining all the budgeting exercises and seeing all the YouTube videos that maybe you
mm,
don't know exist or certainly don't have access to.
mm.
So fundamental life skills, empowered assisting with AI, I think are an incredible way to make much better or at least informed decisions about financial responsibility, about complex processes, about pursuing topics or things that are otherwise not taught at your high school or your college or your overall community. I think ways of working is also really, really critical. Like, I don't think anyone's going to assume, right, that the world is going to get kinder, right, or sort of
Yeah,
more inclusive to hiring larger and larger scale. And so we're seeing lots of layoffs, we're seeing lots of
yeah.
transformations of shapes of organizations. Okay, so how do we become and create competition? Well, if you've spent 4 years working for a leading consulting firm, you know how to make a PowerPoint slide. If you are someone who hasn't had that experience, you might be the world's best thinker, but maybe you have not memorized where all the buttons and the menus are to create that PowerPoint slide.
Yeah.
Using AI to express your vision, your critical thinking, your differentiated thoughts, and not having to be held back by memorizing tools or platforms, products or services that require money or time, of neither which are ubiquitous, right, in most
Right.
communities, is really critical. I
Mm,
think there's a third dimension here, which is how we're going to get
mm,
specialized and augment our learning over time. A lot of kind of entry level feeders, if you decide to pursue things, whether it's in the trades or kind of secondary education, require a time and an expense that's oftentimes not achievable for most. And so we get a lot of wonderful community colleges and other types of on ramps into more traditional kind of higher ed environments. And what that
mm,
means is that oftentimes you're taking the minimums or the basic requirements. And while each of those professors might be remarkable, right? He, she, or they has lived experience in accounting, they have their experience, not the
mm.
experience, right?
Yeah.
And so bringing in every lecture that's ever happened, every aha that's ever come through, the best of the best practices, right? And the ability to apply that with AI by simply just having a conversation
Mm,
feels like a massive accelerator to not spending 60, 80, $100,000 on secondary education, and
yeah.
instead really being able to augment much more affordable, small classroom size learning environments with a much broader range. And those are just a few of the examples that are really coming to
Yeah.
mind
Yeah.
that I think would really sustain and grow equity.